So Matt, how could a strategic Bitcoin reserve align with U.S. climate interests?
Yeah, so this is obviously a whole separate topic of analysis. Is sort of the intersection of Bitcoin and the energy system and our climate objectives as a country and as a world. So I'll kind of give like maybe the wave tops level, and of course BPI has a number of policy briefs and research that go into the very technical details. And I think this will be an evolving area of intense research and requires lots of empirical data to come to a firm conclusion. So with that proviso, I think the big question is to what extent would the US government adopting a strategic Bitcoin reserve accrue maybe positive externalities or negative externalities to a number of those goals, right? Driving a clean energy transition, reinforcing the stability and generation capacity of our energy system, and meeting larger scale kind of geopolitical objectives of ensuring that the U.S. remains sort of energy dominant, energy independent, and sort of supporting our overall kind of geoeconomic position. And of course, each of those separate strands could be multiple hours of conversation. But just on the question of like to what extent would a strategic Bitcoin reserve mechanically lead to certain types of externalities? Well, obviously, if the price goes up, that will increase the demand for more Bitcoin mining. More Bitcoin mining, will lead to more energy, demand. The question is that net marginal extra increase in energy demand likely to come from sources of energy in the United States or outside the United States? And will it lead to the demand of energy sources that are net carbon positive or net carbon negative, right? And that's an unknown question. I think the data points, cautiously in the area of as Bitcoin has become increasingly more reliant on renewable energy sources, that will lead to kind of a relatively proportional increase in kind of clean energy driving Bitcoin mining. Of course, this is highly subject to change in terms of the policy environment and where and how miners look to get access to power sources to capture that potentially step function increase in the return on that investment to get that much more valuable block reward. And so this is an area I think for further analysis. All right, there could be policy measures that could sort of counterbalance or steer Bitcoin miners in a certain direction. That's of course subject to the policy prerogatives of the administration and state and local governments. But I think in general, you could make a cautious case that a strategic Bitcoin reserve would lead to a reinforcement of US's existing advantage in Bitcoin mining, as well as sort of reinforcing our development of our energy infrastructure and potentially increasing the incentives that are already there endogenous to the nature of Bitcoin to help some intermittent forms of renewable energy monetize themselves in a more efficient way. You have kind of this duck curve in forms of say solar, where it doesn't necessarily correlate to the generation doesn't necessarily correlate to energy demand, and Bitcoin miners can sort of step in as a flexible load to help kind of smooth out that sort of energy production demand mismatch, and that also provides a stabilization benefit to grids that are coming in under increasing strain. The U.S. Energy system is coming under a lot of strain, not principally from Bitcoin mining, but really from AI infrastructure build out. There's a several percentage point annual increase expected, if not more, in the electricity production capacity of U.S. grid, which is actually doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually a huge amount relative to its historical baseline. And there's like already a scramble underway to get access to sort of all the raw components and engineered elements that you're going to need to build out that energy infrastructure. These big hyperscaler AI companies are making a huge bet essentially on AI, and they're building out massive data centers, massive infrastructure, transformers, et cetera, to help lay the foundation for that. There could be bottlenecks and constraints there, and also who knows how the AI story is going to play out. So Bitcoin is sort of entering into this industrial expansion with a very different demand profile than AI clusters, potentially more reliable in some ways than AI compute. But I think we're going to see a rapid innovation in business models for how this rapidly expanding sort of energy generating mix can sort of leverage Bitcoin mining and AI to sort of help provide and expand and stabilize the grid. So TBD. But then the nexus of Bitcoin and energy is a very important nexus. And as Bitcoin were to scale with potentially the wind provided by a strategic Bitcoin reserve, it will become, I think, an increasingly important issue. And the geopolitical dimension of this is a lot of countries that are also pro-Bitcoin, you see in the Middle East in particular, also are like very abundant, energy surplus nations, right? A lot of the GCC countries, have stood up their own state, scale Bitcoin mining operations, and they're potentially going to be acquiring Bitcoin for their national reserves as well. And so the U.S. government is going to have to take a hard look at the intersection of all of these policy subjects as part of their overall strategy for becoming dominant in Bitcoin over the next several years, and using that to its geopolitical advantage. There's probably a lot more to say on the energy and environment question. I think folks should be cautiously optimistic, but it's going to be a matter of kind of the empirical data, how Bitcoin mining will respond potentially to the establishment of a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and that will principally be motivated through both price as well as other associated policy that comes along with it.